This is going to be the beginning of a series that I'm looking to do here on YouTube, and this will be a series of live solo casts. And we're going to be talking about the superconscious. We're going to be talking about the inner muse. We're going to be talking about creativity and ways of inviting creativity and inspiration on demand. Opening with this affirmation. You can say this affirmation out loud after me, and I'll post this in the notes later so you can use it later on here in your week. The affirmation is repeating after me. I step forward with perfect faith in the power of the omnipresent goodness to bring me what I need at the time I need it. Om Shanti Shanti. Jai Masters, Jai Guru. I'd like to just kind of go back in time a little bit here, back to 2020, which is a time where a lot of things shifted and a lot of things changed for artists. And I know during that time, so many of us really made some big shifts in our careers and in things that we were doing. We started asking, why am I doing this? Or looking for ways where we could maybe have more of a meaningful effect in the world around us. And that's really what happened for me. Is I really got a deep desire to do good for the world at large, to find out if there are ways that I could have a meaningful impact on the world around me. And this was also the time in 2020 where I got initiated into Kriya Yoga, which was a process that I had been working on for about a year of training the nervous system and studying, working with the monks and Nayaswamis at Ananda Village in California. And I was initiated into Kriya Yoga, and it was in 2018 where I made the decision to start meditating every day for the rest of my life, no matter what. And I originally got into meditation for creative purposes, to tap into those realms beyond the thinking mind, beyond the physical realm, in order to bring visions and to tune into the higher self, to really provide me with inspiration and ideas and visuals for the artwork that I was creating. And that was how it got started. And then fast forward to 2020, taking Kriya initiation. At that point, I had an illustration agent in New York, and I was really a dream agent that I've been working on getting signed by them for almost 5 years. I was working on trying to get that and make that happen. And then for many years, I was working with that agent. I got to do work for a lot of big brands and projects over the years. And in my mind, that was making it. That was getting there. That was doing what I set out to do. And things really started to shift for me. I started to have really different motivations. I began to become a lot less interested in making a name for myself and to have fame and to have recognition. It really became more about wanting to make artwork from a deep place and to make work that could have an impact on others for good. And that led me into, in 2020, actually letting go of my agent and wanting to pursue artwork that was of a spiritual nature. I didn't know how I was going to manage, how I was going to pay the bills. And it's something that I've been working with for some time now, is for figuring out how to do that. Always along the way, I've been supported by my wife, who somehow continues to stay with me throughout all of these different shifts. And these, living with an artist is not an easy thing, because we're always following this inner voice, this inner guide that is taking us into all these different avenues. And it was really with her support, and always along the way, I always found just enough to keep paying my bills and to keep moving forward. And I felt really drawn to. I know I've been talking about this oracle deck that I've been very drawn towards creating. And that is something that's been on the table and something that I've been allowing to be natural and to come about as it will. So I've been not moving forward with it because I keep getting other clues. I keep getting other inspirations. And really, over these last few years, it's been almost really putting a pause on my career, as it were, and learning how to go inward and seek guidance and seek true inspiration. And this is a fascination that has been developing. And recently, in thinking about, well, I've got to do things here that are going to be bringing in some income. I teach guided meditations every Wednesday in person, and then I come on here on social media on Tuesdays, and I put a lot of work into being able to offer these things. But these are things that I do for free. And so I started thinking about what I could do that maybe would bring in some more money. I also have an online store where I sell prints and posters and t-shirts and apparel, all those kind of things. And I started thinking about what would I do if I, what are some things that I enjoy doing that could bring in some money and that would still be in harmony with wanting to really have a good positive impact on the world and my peers. And I started thinking about teaching. That teaching is something that I really enjoy. For me, I learn something so much more powerfully when I know that I'm going to share it with somebody else. I almost kind of need that. Like, I need a reason, or I want to be around others who are also practicing something. That's a very big motivator for me. So I started thinking about creating an online course. And within the inspiration that started coming through, there was some books that I was reading at the time. Some of these really great magical books. One is called Art as a Hidden Message by Swami Kriyananda. The other one is The Artist's Journey by Stephen Pressfield. Another one is The Creative Act by Rick Rubin, the producer. And these books were really all saying a lot of the same things. That it's really, so there's an opening quote in Rick Rubin's The Creative Act. And this is a quote by, I believe it's a 18th century painter. And I quote this a lot. And the quote says, "The object isn't to make art. It's to be in that wonderful place that makes art inevitable." I think I'm getting that wrong. It's to be in that wonderful state that makes art inevitable. So this is really what I want to aim at in my life, is to be in that wonderful state that makes art inevitable, to have these feelings in life and to have experiences that we are capturing with our art, or that just begins to flow out of us, and to more and more live a life where our life becomes like a work of art, that our words are a work of art, that our existence and our presence is like a work of art. And there's another book that came into my world that is called Treasure Hunt by an author named Rizwan Virk, who's an MIT computer scientist. And this book really came into my world in an interesting way. This book is around following your intuition, following clues that are put out in front of you by your inner muse, your higher self. And this book is been very fascinating for me. It came, the way it came to me was really interesting. I was watching that show Silicon Valley, if you've seen that. from about 10 years ago. I was watching some episodes of that with my wife, and there was an episode in the show where there was an investor in the show who he was very quirky, very strange, and but very well respected. And in the episode, the company needed to make a lot of money in a very quick time, or there was going to be some dire consequences. And this this investor, he was doing very strange things. Like he came in one day that they were, everybody is on his back to, what are we going to do? How are we going to make this money? What's going to be the solution? And he comes in one day and he says to his team, he's like, have you heard of this burger chain? It's called Burger King. Or it's the king of the burgers. And they say, yeah, we've heard of it. And he just starts asking them strange questions about it. And do you enjoy the food there? And he has them buy one of everything that they make and lays it out on the table in front of him. And he's just sitting there contemplating. And it seems like, I think it was for days, just like contemplating what it is to do. And people keep coming and asking him, what is the solution? And he just keeps thinking about it until at the end of the episode here, he all of a sudden has this aha moment about sesame seeds and sesame seed distribution. And all of a sudden he makes a phone call and starts following these clues about it, and finds out there's a way that he could streamline sesame seed distribution or something like that. So long story short, in a matter of days, he was able to generate millions of dollars on this deal. And that episode really kind of struck me. It was very interesting to me. And I started thinking like, wow, like as weird as that would be to work for somebody like that, it would be really interesting. And I wonder if there are techniques that he's using, because in that show Silicon Valley, they were always kind of referencing things that were true in the real world, or the ways that different people operated. And I started thinking about that, and then I just sort of let it go. And and then with this book, I had another, day of I was meditating, and I was praying to my guru Yogananda. And it was a day where I was feeling, I wasn't feeling very enthusiastic that day. I was kind of like lackluster in my enthusiasm for my practice and for the wonder and magic of the world. And I remember praying that morning to bring back the magic, bring back the treasure hunt that I used to be on, where when I was first on the spiritual path, everything seemed awake and alive, and the universe was speaking to me, and things were flowing. And so I was praying for that to come back. And one of my friends sent me a link to a podcast by the author Rizwan Virk. And in that podcast, he started talking about this book, Treasure Hunt. And it was exactly what I was looking for, what I was asking for. In this book, actually, since Rizwan Virk is a Silicon Valley investor, tech investor, and he was writing this book that almost exactly matched the way of subtle clues and subtle instincts or feelings of deja vu, or things that resonate with a person, and then you honor and follow those clues towards where your higher self is trying to get you to go. And that's what this book was about. And also, when I looked up the book on Audible, the published date was October 17th, which is also my birth date. So I was like, oh, there's another fun little clue in there. And so I started really studying and reading this book, and combining that with these other 3 books that I mentioned on creativity. And it really started putting together a lot of these clues, and I was following clues and making notes of every time I had a hunch or a feeling of deja vu, or just a funny feeling about something, or a synchronicity. And so with that, I started developing a course on creativity because for myself, I was like, I would love to really put this into a structure that I could use. And then when I'm using it, I could also teach it to someone else. And if I could also get around others who are also working in this way, that would be such an incredible community environment to be around. And so I started developing this course, and I believe that it'll be Skillshare is what I'm going to launch this on. And then within the Patreon uh, account that I have now will be a way that I can gather with those who are taking the course, and where we can share our experiences and encourage each other. And so I put together this course. I wrote the whole outline, and I'm just about ready to start recording the videos and the lessons. And it's also going to have experiential practices of meditation that we can use within it, so that you can not just hear about these things, but also get a feeling for it and invoke and invite. So the first thing with this course is to reawaken the child within. And this is really important, is to reawaken that sense of wonder that we used to have when we were children, that, we may have lost as we get older. And actually, as I was writing that part of the course, I did a podcast with Richie Beckett, which is a fascinating and incredible illustrator that I'm a big fan of. And when I was talking with him, one of the first things that he talked about was wanting to really rekindle his childlike nature, the childlike feeling that he had when he first got into art. And he felt like that was slipping, and then that was having an effect on his art. So I thought that was really interesting. And then within the book, Rick Rubin's book, The Creative Act, he talked a lot about rekindling that childlike feeling. And this is a quote from the book here, The Creative Act. He said, "This freedom is not as difficult to achieve as one might think. We all start with it. As children, we experience much less interference between receiving ideas and internalizing them. We accept new information with delight instead of making comparisons to what we already believe. We live in the moment rather than worrying about future consequences. We are spontaneous more than analytical. We are curious, not jaded. Even the most ordinary experiences in life are met with a sense of awe. Deep sadness and intense excitement can come within moments of each other. There's no facade, no attachment to a story. Artists who are able to continually create great works throughout their lives often manage to preserve these childlike qualities. Practicing a way of being that allows you to see the world through uncorrupted, innocent eyes can free you to act in concert with the universe's timetable." And so this childlike way of seeing the world is so important for entering into this place where we're looking to see our lives as a magical treasure hunt, where synchronicities abound, and we see that our higher self is playing with us in life. And so with this course, the first part of it is to reawaken the childlike nature within us. And I actually got to do a in-person experiential version of this, myself and a couple friends of mine, Tim and Hassan, that I've been meditating with in our meditation group for the last over a year together. And we just did our first meditation forest hiking camping retreat. We did that 2 weekends ago. And I actually got to take this course that I've been developing and to present it and offer it through meditations and through talking about these different ideas with the group. And we got to progressively go through the hero's journey. And with the retreat, we were able to have the physical exercise, the physical effort that we were putting in. We hiked 8 miles through the forest. We were carrying all of our gear for our tents and our sleeping bags and all of that into the forest. And we camped around a lake. And along the way, we had meditations and we did rituals around connecting with our inner guide and with our purpose. And my friend Hassan, he does human design and gene keys readings for people. So we had a a purpose animal that we offered to everyone that came with a reading that would connect you to the purpose for why you came here, your soul's purpose for why you took birth at this time, in this body, in this place. And it was fascinating to see how people really connected with their purpose animals. And so we did a ritual around invoking those animals, and then also giving them to each of the guests. Tim got each of the guests a physical representation as a little brass totem of the animal, and then we presented that to each of the guests that we had in the retreat. And so we first started with welcoming and opening ourselves to that childlike nature and wonder, and then delivering the purpose animal to the guests to then bring that awareness into our minds, and then doing the ritual of really inviting and accepting that. One of the other steps in the course is around the threshold guardians that show up for us, and the resistance that Stephen Pressfield talks about in his book, The Artist's Journey. That anytime that we take on a noble concern for the world, we have a noble concern for the world or for ourselves. If we take on anything good, anything that we're doing, even if it's like a workout for ourselves to do good for ourselves, or if we take on a project that we're excited about, we're always met with a equal and opposite force that tries to get us to stop, tries to keep us from doing that work. And I like to think of that as a threshold guardian. And I also like to think of it as not an enemy, but rather a guardian that is really just testing us to make sure that we are ready. And once we see this threshold guardian in our mind, because what it will feel like in the moment, I like to have these metaphors because it helps me to say, like, oh, I see you, threshold guardian. It'll come up and it'll try to deceive us. And it's really just the ego trying to preserve itself. It's trying to keep you from transcending the ego. And so it'll come up and it'll come in ways of, like, perhaps it will come in as self-doubt. It may come in as distractions, maybe vices that you struggle with start to show up and distract you from doing your work. It may show up as a feeling of maybe wanting to give up and give in, or a feeling of what's the point, or who am I, or all of these things, these deceptive things that come into our minds, where when we started, we had so much enthusiasm and we were sure of ourselves. And then that threshold guardian, that resistance comes in and it tries to get us to stop. And we can have mentors and friends that show up during this time that encourage us to move on and to move past these. And so this is a part of the course that I'll be teaching, is on the threshold guardians, is to recognize them, and we encouraging each other to move beyond them. But first, to have a love in our heart and a noble desire in our heart to move forward without hubris, but with competence and courage. There's a quote that I love from, this is a quote from Joseph Campbell in The Hero with 1,000 Faces. And he says, "The powers that watch at the boundary are dangerous. To deal with them is risky. Yet for anyone with competence and courage, the danger fades." And I remember when I first heard that in the audiobook, I recorded it and then I put it on a loop and played it over and over. I've really felt that this held a lot of keys for me in my life, that the powers that watch at the boundary, so the boundary of our current limitations, where we're at, we want to go beyond those boundaries. We want to start some new venture. We want to go beyond what we thought was possible, and we want to step forward with perfect faith in the power of the omnipresent goodness to bring us what we need when we need it. And we want to trust that mighty forces are with us when we are bold and brave. But those threshold guardians will destroy us if we go through with hubris. There's a movie called The Never-Ending Story with the character protagonist is named Atreyu. And he is coming on, if you know that movie, if you've seen it, this is an old movie from my childhood that I really loved. And there's a scene where there's a threshold, where there's a gate that there is a Atreyu and this wizard are looking down and seeing these two giant sphinxes made of stone, and the sphinxes have lasers for eyes, and their eyes are closed, and they're looking down and they see this knight in armor and a sword, and he's so confident, and he has all of this hubris. He thinks that he can move beyond them and move past this gate. And so as he starts moving through the gate, the Sphinx's eyes start to open and they shoot lasers and destroy that knight. And so next up is Atreyu's chance to move past that gate. So he's got to overcome the fear in his heart. He's got to have a steady mind. He's got to concentrate on his will to do good for the world and to do good for himself and to pass through that gate. And so this comes up for me a lot of times when I think about, as an artist, we're always taking chances. We're always putting ourselves on the line. It's really quite a wild thing to always be putting yourself. I know in art school we would have critiques. So you make your art and then you hang it on the wall, and then the class critiques it, the teacher critiques it. So you kind of get used to being critiqued all the time. And it can be really good for, I guess, this diminishing the ego when you are allowing, if I tried to make it a practice of really listening to criticisms and critiques, and to, as much as possible, to not get offended by that, because in school I did come there to learn and to grow. I don't want to feel like I know it all. So I did my best to make that a practice early on in my career. I mean, obviously that's something that's ongoing, and always learning how to, with an even mind, to listen to criticism and take it into account, and to see if there's any validity there or not. But this ability to move beyond the thresholds and to go beyond worrying about people criticizing us or thinking we're ridiculous, because making art, I mean, it's a ridiculous thing oftentimes. We get into these realms beyond the thinking mind. We go into our inner worlds, and it was Stephen Pressfield. I love his definition of an artist. He said that really the skill that an artist has, the only skill that qualifies someone as an artist, is the ability to shuffle back and forth from the physical material plane. He calls it level 1 of the physical material plane, to shuffle from this physical plane into the realm of the unmanifested world, the plane of pure potentiality, the ground of being, the world of pure feeling, and to shuffle back and forth from that realm back into the physical realm, and to bring back the gold of that journey and to manifest it here in the physical world as our art. And as we're doing this, it's really we want to follow that as much as possible. We want to follow our inner guide, our inner intuition. We want to be bringing things into this world that are beyond just regurgitated thoughts. And this is something that I'm very, very interested in, and why I started making this course, so that I could practice these things and to become a true artist. He talks a lot in that book about what's called the muse, the inner guide, the daemon, the higher self. The definition of the daemon is known as genius, the inner genius, when we see a genius work of art, a genius work of music, of sculpture, of writing. Writing can be very fascinating, because you see all these stories that we see in TV and movies and novels, and like, where do these stories come from? How could one person have all of this within them? And really what it is they're going beyond their own experiences, going beyond the thinking mind and allowing something else to write through them. Or you can think of like a battle rapper or a freestyle rapper, which just all of a sudden, they go into calm the mind and go into this place where they can just start spitting rhyming lyrics. And it's fascinating how people can do that. Or you see these authors that just are able, one book after another. And, like you look at a guy like Stephen King, and it's like, look at all the books that he wrote. Or on the opposite, another higher consciousness realm of that would be Swami Kriyananda, where in his lifetime, he wrote 150 published works and books, 400 pieces of music. And he's got thousands of recorded lectures where he just starts with a topic and then all of a sudden can just go and riff and deliver and allow these inspirations to flow through him. So this is something we've been seeing people do. And now the question is, how do we do it? Can we do it ourselves? Is there techniques and ways that we can become like that? And from my practice with this, I say, yes, this is possible. Swami Kriyananda even talks about how inspiration can come to us on demand, that it's really about having clarity of what it is that we're asking for. And so to put this into a little bit of a framework, bringing it back to the idea of living life as a treasure hunt and paying attention to feelings, to synchronicities, to clues that we see in the universe around us, feelings of deja vu, or whatever reason, something just really sticks out to us, or we flip through a book and we come to a passage that just speaks to us in that moment, or we have a experience in nature that just is so gorgeous and beautiful that awakens a feeling in us, or we have a experience with another person, another human being, that just brings so much feeling into our lives. That it's first about having those experiences ourselves, and then artwork can be a way for us to convey and also invite others, viewers, listeners, readers, to join us in that feeling. There's a quote this is from Stephen Pressfield's Artist Journey. He has some quotes in here from Leo Tolstoy. The first one is, "Art is not a handicraft. It is the transmission of feeling the artist has experienced. Art is not a handicraft. It is the transmission of feeling the artist has experienced." Another one by Tolstoy. "A real work of art destroys in the consciousness of the receiver the separation between himself and the artist." I'll read that again. "A real work of art destroys in the consciousness of the receiver the separation between himself and the artist." So a real work of art, a true great work of art, allows the receiver of that work to have no separation between themselves and the artist. It invites that receiver to step into the bhavana, the feeling, the transmission of the depth of feeling that artist had when they were making the work, and allows and invites you to also be able to step into that feeling. This is one from Robert Schumann. To send light into the depths of the human heart, that is the artist's calling. To send light into the depths of the human heart, that is the artist's calling. And so it makes a lot of sense that in our lives we should be seeking those depths, that light, those feelings, those uplifted feelings, those superconscious connections, so that we can be someone who delivers that work, that through our work. So tying this together and thinking about, okay, these things that happen in our life, these feelings, these clues, making notes of those, and then looking to see what the universe is trying to get us to do. Something wants to happen through us. This is really a call to artists. I really, everybody's an artist. It doesn't matter if you're a painter or a musician or a writer. We're all artists. We're all creatives. We all have this ability within us. And so with this is we have the feeling, we see the clues, and we know that something wants to happen through us. And so we can use meditation, and Stephen Pressfield has a prayer to the Muse, saying these prayers to the Muse before we begin our work. I do that every day. And we then have something that we would like to make a painting around, an illustration, a song. And how do we do that? How do we transform this feeling that we have? And if you think about that idea of shuttling back and forth from level 1 of the physical plane to the level of pure feeling, we can think about that level of pure feeling, bringing that feeling into our hearts, and then that feeling translating, say, into words that we want to share and write. And then so it goes from a feeling, non-physical, into ideas, thoughts in the mind, and then those thoughts become translated into writing, and then that can convey that feeling to someone else who is reading those words. And so this is really what all of this is talking about. And there are techniques and methods that we can use to cultivate this within ourselves and to become better at this. It's just in the same way we can practice meditation, we can practice going into that state of no mind, pure feeling, and then we can receive inspiration. And Swami Kriyananda talks about that there are two kinds of inspiration. There are thoughts that come from that are regurgitated or reformed in the thinking mind. We're just taking something that we've already seen before, and then we're repurposing it or putting it together in a new way. Or there are inspirations that come from the superconscious, beyond the thinking mind, to bring something completely fresh and brand new into the world that goes beyond anything that we have seen before. And the superconscious inspiration is, he says, more to be desired than the lower, for it has its ground in truth and not in purely just the imagination or the subconscious realm. Because the subconscious realm is just full of everything and anything. We can, just because we get an idea, we feel really strongly about it, we still could be moving in a direction which could be a negative pattern that we have in our lives. And Rizwan Virk talks about ways to detect and notice the patterns that we have, and he calls those anti-clues. That's sometimes these things that come in, they can feel so strong. We could be so excited about an idea. And then when we get into it, we're like, oh man, I wish I wasn't doing this now. I've got this new idea and now I'm kind of trapped doing this. And man, I just went back into that pattern again. It's an old pattern. So there are ways to kind of have these scales where we can weigh it, or you have an idea and we water it with love, as Swami Kriyananda says, and we see whether or not that idea grows stronger, the impulse for the idea grows stronger or weaker when we hold our thoughts up to the calmness within. In calmness, I receive inspiration from my higher self is an affirmation. And drink a little. That there are ways for us to be able to weigh and measure and to find out if this is something that we are really being called to do. A little example here in my work. I'm in a group show coming up at a gallery called ABV in Atlanta with Greg Mike and his team. And this show is called Wild Wonders. It's going to be a show about that's going to be all on animals and the nature and creatures, things like this. So I was wondering what my work was going to be about. What is wanting to happen? What does this painting want to be? And one of the things that I like to do, I have a big collection library of books, of lots of images, things that I've collected over the years. And I like to just kind of flip through some books and see what starts standing out. For my work, for those who know my work, I focus on deities, a lot of Eastern deities in the work. I was thinking that I wanted to do maybe a deity that was connected to an animal. There's an animal, there's different deities that have animal heads, like Ganesha or the lion-headed deity, things like this. And I was thinking that the work would be around something like that. So I'm looking through different books that kind of stuck out. And as I'm looking through this book, it's all Eastern Buddhist and Hindu deities. It's a book from Thailand that I got. And the first page that I opened to, the whole book is filled with other Eastern deities. And I opened the book and it has an image of Thoth or Thoth from the Egyptian mythology, the god of writing, the god of magic, god of the teacher of man. And I thought, oh, this is kind of interesting. What is this doing in here? This is an Egyptian deity. So it gave me kind of a funny feeling, really interest in Thoth. And I put that book down and I grabbed another one. And this was a book on the flower of life, one that I got a while ago from a secondhand bookshop. And it looked interesting when I got it. I hadn't really read through it yet. And I flipped open that book, and then lo and behold, there's a photo of a stone tablet or a hieroglyph with the image of Thoth in it. And I was like, wow, that's kind of interesting. 2 in a row there. So I bring those books over to my desk, and I was going to just, do some research on Thoth. And I looked at on my desk. I had a tarot card deck on my desk, and the name of that deck. This is a Aleister Crowley tarot deck, and the name of it is Thoth. And so I was like, okay, there's 3 in a row, and it was a pretty quick deadline approaching on this painting. So I'm like, all right, I'm gonna start going down this path with Thoth and start doing some sketching and see where it goes, and doing some research with it, and really just putting myself into the bhavana of the feeling of Thoth, and getting a sense of the mythology and some of the teachings around him. And I was reading about him as a inspiration to humanity before there was language, before there was writing, before people could communicate stories and share and do creative writing and really capture history as well. And so I was thinking about him as this this inspiration to man. And in my meditation, after my meditations, I like to sit for a while in a bit of like a prayerful mode. And sometimes I like to write or record on my phone some thoughts that come through during the meditation. And after my meditation, I started having this new real way. Like, I'm not a writer. I do some writing, but I never really saw myself as a writer. But in reading these books, like these different books, like especially Stephen Pressfield, the way that he writes about the act of writing, I really been interested in writing and the magic of that. And I felt like after this meditation and connecting with Thoth that I got a real sense of that moving from this realm into the other realm and then back again, because that was what was happening. I would close my eyes, put my gaze at the point between the eyebrows. I would ask for some inspiration around a certain topic. And then all of a sudden, I would just get supercharged with ideas, and I would start writing in my journal. And then as soon as I sort of hit a pause in what I had to write about, I went back into meditative state, gaze uplifted at the point between the eyebrows, relaxing the body. And then all of a sudden, new insights, new ideas start coming into my mind. Then I would pause again, start writing. And this went on for a while. And the writing was some really profound uh, wisdom that was coming through that I really cherish. And so I felt like I was already connecting with Thoth, and he was teaching me. And I also, so in that moment too, I'm asking my guru Yogananda to come to me in the form of Thoth, to give me inspirations through this ancient symbol. And more synchronicities were happening. I was a good friend of mine, a wonderful artist that lives in Thailand that I've had on the podcast before, Luke Brown, who was in town here in St. Pete here a little bit ago. And I was telling him about Thoth and in these synchronicities that were happening. And as we were walking down the street and I was talking to him about these synchronicities, a woman is walking towards us, and she has a t-shirt on with a pyramid on it and hieroglyphics on it. And I'm just like, well, there's another one. And we sort of laughed at it. And it's like this magical perception of reality that starts opening up when you start to invite it and wanting to see the world in this way, that our higher selves got our attention, and then it starts really playing with us. And this is the way that I really want to create all of my work, is to have these experiences and feelings and then work those into the pieces. So something that I always think about when I'm making a drawing or a painting is that is the feeling or the state of consciousness that I'm in while I'm making that work. And I think about the connection with the viewer. I say to myself, if I'm enjoying drawing this line, painting this line, then chances are someone who's looking at it will enjoy it as well. And I do my best to keep alive the magic and the feeling in myself while I'm making the work. So I'm now working on this painting, and that was, you saw in the preview thumbnail of this podcast here. It was the illustration that I made around Thoth, and now I'm working on the painting of it. And all along, what I'm doing is keeping alive that magical feeling that I had when I started noticing that the universe keeps sending me these Thoth synchronicities. And as I'm continuing to do that, and the feeling that I got once I started getting that inspiration around writing, that I'm putting that feeling into the piece. And something that came up too as I was working on that piece is a real feeling that I'm ready to start creating the artwork for this oracle deck. that I've been talking about for a while. Maybe a lot of you have been waiting on me to like, where is he at with that? He's been talking about it forever and I don't see it. So I got the feeling here now from starting this Thoth painting that he is going to be the first card in the Oracle deck, and that this Oracle deck is going to be, I'm feeling so enthusiastic about it, is going to be now deities from cultures around the world, not just Hindu and Buddhist deities that are normally my cup of tea. It's branching out now, just really asking the universe what wants to happen and following these clues. So I'm going to be in real time following the clues, just like this first one. And I'm going to be sharing these clues, these synchronicities in my Patreon, also with you guys through the podcast and through my social media. I'm going to really be making it a journey that you can follow along with, and then also be teaching you how to do it and get around other people who are operating like this, and we can share our stories in the chat. And I'll be sharing a lot of these books, and I'll be creating guided visualizations and meditations. And like I said, I'll have the Skillshare course that I'll be recording and putting out there. But this is now, I'm really happy to say that I feel now that this first card is happening. And with each of the cards, I'm going to be making a painting. And so in order to be able to support this ongoing long project, each painting will be available for sale. And then I'll also be making available prints and apparel that will go with each of the deities, each of the oracle cards. And with each of these as well, what the idea is that when you'll be able to roll over this card with your phone, and then you'll have a series of options. So one of the options would be to hear a mythic story of the deity. So say if it was Thoth, you would hear a story about that deity that would speak to the person. It may unlock within you some aha moments as you hear the story. You could also select to hear a guided visualization, meditation with that deity. And then another option is to hear the symbolism of that card and the way that it relates to your journey. And so each of them will have that. And so as I release these prints and the apparel, I'm also going to be releasing these meditations and these short stories for people to tune into. So it's going to be a long ongoing project until that whole deck is done. But this will be this series where you can use these, and you can use these meditations. And I'm going to be figuring out just exactly how those all go out. Maybe they're going to be in the Patreon page, and maybe some of them will be available on YouTube for free. And this will be just a fun way for me to teach this course, also demonstrate it in the artwork that I'm making, and be able to connect and be in a community with all of you, that we can really step into our power as creatives this year. Because I really believe that it is time for the artists. Around the world, whenever the world gets frightening, when there's seemingly a lot of chaos in the world, whenever there's a lot of challenges and fear and uncertainty in the world, always, always, always the art gets better, the music gets better, creativity increases. And it's a real call to us to not lose heart, to not get distracted, because that is the resistance. If we're getting distracted by the news, if we're getting distracted by fears, if we're getting distracted by doubts, or we're upset about the current state of social media, and we're upset about the current state of AI, and we're worried about how things are changing. Things are always changing. things are always shifting. This world is a rapid flux of change, and it is up to the artists to stay vigilant. It's up to us to know that it doesn't matter what's going on in the world around us. There's another beautiful book called "The Obstacle is the Way" by Ryan Holiday, where he shows all of these examples across history where the world was in a lot of distress, and how there were some of the best inventions, some of the best companies, some of the greatest creative works came out of those times by artists who didn't get distracted by all of that, because as artists we're turning inward. And that doesn't go away. That doesn't change. You can't destroy that. That is always available. And so this is the call to artists. It's really about, it's really the artists that make this world a more beautiful place. It's artists that change the world. It's not the guns and the billions of dollars and the violent revolutions. All of those things come and go, but it is the way that we can make people feel that lasts. And we can see that even there's like stories like the Ramayana that has been written into Sanskrit thousands of years ago that still compels and inspires and uplifts, like works like the Bible, works like the Bhagavad Gita. Really, when you think about it, what are these great scriptures? They are art. They're incredible writing and storytelling and artwork that goes along with that, the visuals and the music that comes along with it. We are really, there's no reason why artists now in this time can't be writing modern scripture. Yogananda, his book, Autobiography of a Yogi, he knew how to do that, to go beyond the thinking mind and to be a channel for greatness to come through. And that's really what the genius is. And the genius wants to come through you in your work. And I've got so much more to share, but I think hoping this makes sense to you guys. There was a thought that came through that I think is really interesting to share. And this is around it began with Swami Kriyananda. He was talking about how he does it, how he wrote so much music, right? And he's always looking to write music that captures the right feeling for certain circumstances or different situations, or being appropriate for a lot of different things, or to capture a certain feeling. And when he was talking about how he does it, it was so similar to sounding like the way that you would prompt AI. So he would be talking about how he would, so he was talking about writing a song. This is a quote from him from his book, Art as a Hidden Message, long before AI. So this will put it into perspective. He said, before you ask inwardly for guidance, be clear in your mind as to the sort of ideas you hope to express. If you plan to write a piece of music, tell the higher consciousness, the subconscious, tell the higher consciousness and the subconscious subjects you want to cover. Ask then for inspiration on specific aspects of that subject. Don't merely say, give me something peaceful, but visualize peace of a particular kind or in a particular setting. Perhaps peace in the evening with the moonrise on a lake and the tranquil effect of that scene on the mind that is in need of respite after a day's turmoil. So you can really see here what he's talking about. So maybe you've experienced that before. Maybe you've experienced a moonrise on a lake, and the tranquil effect that scene has brought you. It brought you a respite after a day of turmoil. Maybe you've had that experience. So say you want to create a song or a painting that captures that feeling, and it allows others to have that feeling. So being very clear in what you're asking for. He said, here too is an important adjunct. Let your mind flow forward, completely confident that the inspiration you want stands before you, its arms outstretched, waiting. This is faith, faith that requires an unhesitating commitment to energy. And he says, to achieve inner clarity, certain attitudes are necessary. The most important of these are faith, as I stated earlier, openness, and love. Patience, too, is needed, for the answers don't often come at the very moment you ask for them. And remember, for now, that even a little lack of clarity at the source of creativity may result in no clarity at the end. So he's talking about it being very important when we start a creative project to have clarity of what it is that we are looking to accomplish. What feeling is it that we are looking to express in the work of art that we're making? And so bringing it back to this idea of prompting the universe, I feel that we can go inward and in our minds, just as he said here, not just say, give me something peaceful, but visualize peace of a particular kind or in a particular setting. So visualize peace in the evening with the moonrise on a lake and the tranquil effect of that scene on a mind that is in need of respite after a day's turmoil. So can you imagine bringing that thought up into your mind? And Swami Kriyananda says that we should uphold our thought in calmness. So we have a calmness about us. So I hold my thoughts up to the calmness within. In calmness, I receive inspiration from my higher self. So we get calm, and then we get very specific and clear about our intention for the work. And then with our gaze uplifted at the spiritual eye, we send that to the universe, just like a prompt. So it makes so much sense to me. It's like, okay, if you just said, give me something peaceful, something would come back, but it wouldn't be very clear or very good in your AI generation. But if you were very specific on what you were asking for, and you were writing that spell initially, essentially, into your computer, and then you would get back something that was so much closer to what you had in mind. This is so much similar to what Swami's talking about. It's being very clear, using the point, the gaze uplifted at the point between the eyebrows, sending this out, holding that thought up to the calmness, and then allowing that feeling to come through, that feeling that you want to express, and then feeling that feeling. So that's shuttling back and forth from level one. So level one into the realm of pure feeling, having that feeling yourself, and then bringing that back in, and then getting to work. Maybe all of a sudden, like Swami, he would start to hear a melody in his mind, and then he would go to the piano and play that melody. Maybe ideas for writing come into your mind, and all of a sudden you're writing. Maybe a vision comes into your mind for a piece that you might create, and then you start sketching, drawing, painting. This is really fascinating to me. I feel like my experiments with AI have helped me to better prompt the universe and to ask for inspiration. So I've been practicing this, and I'm going to be making this also kind of a part of the course that I'm teaching here, of ways that we can do this. So maybe I always look at technology as a way of showing us more about the nature of reality. I enjoy virtual reality. There's a virtual reality, they call it a sandbox here, where you put on a haptic suit, and you put on sensors on your arms and your legs, and you put on the goggles, and then all of a sudden you're transported into this virtual reality space, and you are now, you start to think that this is my body, this is like really quickly, things that you see in that video game reality, like you might try. I mean, it's like there was part of this one where I leaned on something, and I really almost fell over, because that's what Rizwan Virk talks about. That was an aha moment for him, is like, all this didn't really take very long for me to feel like I'm in this world, I'm in this other body. And so like a technology like that is showing us the nature of reality, that we actually are in an illusion. This is what all the great saints, sages have been telling us. And now our science is actually telling us that this is most likely the case. This is Rizwan Virk also wrote a book called the simulation hypothesis, and he teaches courses on that. And they say that it won't be only maybe a matter of some decades before we are experiencing virtual reality that is indistinguishable from the world that we are experiencing now. So he was saying that chances are, if that's on the horizon, if that's possible, the chances that you are currently not in a virtual reality video game uh, right now are actually very slim. That really blew my mind when I heard that and started to think about that. But I'm saying all this just to really say that I feel like the technologies that are coming about, rather than being afraid of them or feeling like they're destroying things that are real and true, maybe they're just pointing at the true nature of reality, that this life is an illusion, that we have spiritual amnesia, that we're not really these bodies. I don't think that I have a body somewhere else that's like in a matrix style container, and that I'm here now as Chris, and that that I don't think I have a body at all. I really follow the teachings of the East, and with the meditations and spiritual experiences that I've had. I believe that we're all formless, infinite, eternal beings, just having these experiences, having these human experiences in these bodies. And this world is not as solid as we like to think, as we are being tricked into believing, that these things like connecting with your inner muse and starting to play with your inner muse, and paying attention to synchronicities in your life, and following the clues, and art becoming something that is a vehicle, a tool for our soul's evolution. No, like I know for me personally, with spiritual practice, and I've talked to other friends as well who've had this happen, where when you really start to dive into deep meditations, and you start to enter these realms of pure feeling, and you may go through a period where you're like, wow, like making art seems so trivial now. I don't have the motivation that I used to have. I'm not so caught up in chasing after those ambitions anymore. And I went through that deeply, and that's really why I started really guiding meditations and going so much deeper into that, because I saw it as a much more direct way that I could have a creative impact on the world. And actually by doing that, I learned how to show up and guide meditations, to have I would do what we're talking about here is I would connect with my higher self, with my guru. I'd ask to become a channel. I would have a specific feeling, a topic, an idea in mind, and then I would allow something else to come through me to guide the meditations, guide the visualizations, and not have my ego doing it. And so that really actually awakened me to this ability that I have. And coming back around full circle, I'm really, really, really realizing that art is really such a important part of my spiritual practice. It's bringing in that play and that fun and that spiritual adventurousness, and a way to convey feelings and ideas to people, not just through words, but through images and through writing, and also through meditations, and allowing myself to have those experiences, and having a way to convey those to others. And I feel like this podcast is also that. I try to do that with this podcast, is to have these feelings, and then to sit in front of this camera and do my best to get out of the way and have the Superconscious teach me something and hopefully give you guys some things that you can practice and take home and put into your own journeys as well. So this is just, it's been really fascinating coming back around to art and doing it from a new place, a new level. There's a quote here. Let me see if I got that one. Oh, I don't think. Oh yeah, here it is. This is one from Swami on this topic. He said, "Sooner or later, your art will become for you an expression of wordless yearning for the source of your own being. And then, at last, leaving art itself behind, your soul will offer itself to the Divine Mother of all life. Love alone, then, will be your art, and your heart will sing in resounding but soundless melody." I just find that so breathtaking. That this really seems that art is a natural part of the spiritual awakening process. And so this has me really fired up about making art and about connecting with these ancient symbols that really are all mirrors of us. And they are mirrors of the natural world, the mirrors of nature, mirrors of consciousness and energy. And the with this work that I'm doing with the oracle is that same process with Thoth, and then having that painting process where I'm spending time and meditating with and connecting with that feeling, and then being able to then write and to create the guided meditations on what I learned, and then just doing that over and over with each next one that comes up. And it's got me so fired up about artwork again. And so thank you to everybody that's been patient with me. I know, like those of you in the Patreon, I was really planning to start that a long time ago and to have you guys following along with that process. But that is happening now. I'm off and running with it. So I'll be sharing a lot in there, and I'll be recording these courses soon. So I'll be sharing that. And then each Tuesday, this will be a way where we can just gather together and talk about these things and really just form community around these things. And if you I would love to, any comments that you guys have, any experiences that you have, like drop those into the, I'm going to post this on YouTube. I'm going to do a little bit of editing and put this on YouTube. It'll also be in Spotify and Apple Music, and anywhere that you want to leave some comments or likes or share this with your friends. Please help me spread the word on it. I've been doing this podcast now for quite a while, some years. This is episode 59, and is really just a small core group of you that are watching these. There really isn't a lot of viewership on these, but I keep doing it because I love it, and I feel that it's teaching me so much. And I know that there's a few of you out there that really get a lot out of it and watch a lot of these. And it's funny, is like whenever I feel like giving up, or I'm just like, all right, this isn't getting any traction, maybe I should be doing something else. It always happens that I'll somebody that every time I go out, so like say to a restaurant downtown, or I'm out at an art show, or there'll be multiple people that come up to me and just tell me how much it means to them, these podcasts and the guided meditations and the things that I'm sharing. So it means a lot to me that you guys are getting something out of this, and it keeps me fired up about doing it. I'm so glad that I stuck with it, and I'm still doing it. And this new experiment with the live ones, I feel like this maybe is a way we can gather together each week if you got Tuesday nights, and we can feel like we're together sharing and learning and growing. So as always, I like to share some words from Paramahansa Yogananda. This is something that I read just briefly here before getting on, and I think that is a really potent one for really getting over the fright, the fear of putting ourselves out there. A big part of it, Stephen Pressfield talks about, is we can even have a fear of success. Also, Swami Kriyananda talks about that. This fear of success is a big one. That if we really have some success, then we're really going to have to step up and be the person that we know that we are. And that can be scary and daunting. And I just encourage everybody to really do the work to get over those fears of success, fears of failure. Uh, there's a big part of the course is also going to be stepping into those fears and doing meditations on fears so that we can dissolve them and let them go. So I'll share more about that later. And just leaving everybody with this, and I'll be back again next Tuesday. We'll do another live podcast with this, and we'll just keep going deeper and deeper into all of this so that we can expand our creative abilities and to really invite our genius and to start living our life as a wonderful, magical treasure hunt so that we can exist in that wonderful state where art is inevitable. So blessings, friends. Words from Paramahansa Yogananda. This is a book, How to Have Courage, Calmness, and Confidence. He says, stage fright is a form of fear which causes nervousness in many people, so that they are unable to do anything naturally. If you are shy and have stage fright, get your mind quiet and remember that all the power you need is within you. All the power to convince people, all the power to let the infinite spirit function through you. Om, peace. Blessings, friends, and I will see you again next week. Joy to you.